Good evening. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Trying Family web series, First Generation Family Table Talk. We will get started in just a moment. We are going to allow for more participants to enter from the waiting room. This is just a reminder that tonight's session will be recorded and available later. As we wait for more folks to enter, I do want to bring to all of your attention that the question and answer feature will be available tonight throughout the entirety of the session. It is located at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to utilize that question and answer tool throughout the session and ask any questions you may have for our panel. We also have some professional staff on the back end that will be able to answer any questions for you as well. Again, that question and answer feature is located at the bottom of your screen and is available throughout the entirety of tonight's session.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all of the families across California and also the nation and maybe even across the world tuning in tonight for our First Gen Family Table Talks event. We're so excited to share with you some of the insights of our esteemed panelists. You're going to hear from some phenomenal UC San Diego Tritons and Triton alum as they talk about a topic that a lot of first generation college students and also first generation grads experience, which is dealing with family expectations and sometimes the guilt that comes with being the first in their family to go to college at a place like UC San Diego. They'll also touch upon some of their stories of transition, the success steps that they've endured, and how is it that they continue to persist to achieve their goals. One thing that's central to all first generation college students is the support of family, whether that is a grandma, a lola, an abuela, whether it's a mom, a dad, a cousin, a sibling. We know that the support that you provide for first generation college students is not only their primary source of fuel, but also something that continues to keep them setting their eyes set towards their future. So thank you again for joining us. I am Lindsay Roma-Santa, and I currently serve as Director of Student Success Programs at UC San Diego. I am also a proud first generation college graduate. The first generation topic is something that is near and dear to my heart, both professionally and personally. I'm proud to work at a place like UC San Diego that's actually recognized as a first gen forward advisory institution. So what that means is UC San Diego has demonstrated best practices and is viewed as an exemplary institution for the way that they prioritize first generation students with their experiences and ensuring that they are connected to success. So thank you again for the opportunity to share some of our first gen alum and student stories. I'd like to go ahead and introduce who our panelists are. So what they'll share with you today is their name, their hometown, their major, and their year. So Kat, if you don't mind, just go ahead and getting us started.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Kat Arenas. I'm a fourth year psych student, clinical psychology. I'm from South Central Los Angeles, and I'm also involved in Hermanas Unidas. That's like just one of my favorite orgs on campus. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Noemi? Or maybe I could have Marisol go. Marisol, would you like to go?
For sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Marisol Gonzalez. She, her, hers pronouns. I'm from Anaheim, California, so not that far from San Diego. I'm from Marshall College, and I am a fourth year math major.
Thank you, Marisol. And Esteban, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Esteban Alcala, él, he, him, his pronouns. I am a current first-year PhD student at the University of Pittsburgh. I am an alum of UC San Diego, specifically Revel College, where I studied psychology and minored in sociology. And my hometowns are San Diego and Tijuana.
Great. And then last but certainly not least, Noemi, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself as well.
Hi, my name is Noemi. I'm sorry if I cut off a little bit earlier. Wi-Fi is a little bit iffy sometimes. I got two sisters at home, but my name's Noemi. I'm a third year in Marshall. And same thing, my hometown, same as Esteban, is South San Diego, also Tijuana, but mainly south area of San Diego, San Isidro, basically.
So we're so glad that you all could be here tonight. And I'm just going to go ahead and kick it off with this really first question. And I just want to know, tell us about what it's like to be a first generation college student or grad. And if you could just think back, what were some of those early pieces of advice that your family talked to you about education? So what were those early pieces of advice that your family talked to you about related to education? So I'm going to ask Esteban to go first.
So the early pieces of education, my family is college as a like social mobility factor, and that getting a college education will get me a better job, a better lifestyle than what my mom had or has currently. As a first generation college student, PhD student, alum, professional, is every space that I'm going into will be new to me, to the people around me, and kind of like translating what that means going into certain spaces to my family and what I do basically.
Thank you, Esteban. Yeah, there's so much, right, that is shared with us so early on about the power of what education can do. And social mobility is definitely a topic that I feel like even if your parents don't call it that, they are saying, you know, this is why it's important to go to college. So thanks for sharing that. Marisol, if you don't mind just chiming in, what are some of the early things that your family talked to you about related to education?
I think I'll piggyback off of Esteban saying, like, I guess education was like the pathway to like get better jobs, get a better wage, get better work hours, I guess less labor on like less physical labor. So not working those like crazy 40 plus hours, you know, having more time to do like actual hobbies, do like things that you want to do, go on vacation, you know, have fun. So that was definitely education was always like, you know, even if it, I guess my parents never really told me like, oh, you can go to college. Like it was an option, but they're like, oh, as long as you do high school, you'll have a better route or better job opportunities than us that didn't do high school or like, you know, finished like primary school. So definitely that. And then I guess like navigating, I guess stepping into UCSD, it was just crazy because never knew what office hours were. I just thought, can I just raise my hand in the middle of lecture and like ask for a question? But then again, when you go into those big lectures, you see like 100+ students, and then that makes you kind of nervous to ask questions. So definitely learning how to like navigate spaces and using the resources that are on campus that are being offered.
Yeah, Marisol, there's so much, right, to figure out. It's like you spend so much time trying to get into college, then once you're there, there's all of these unwritten rules and norms that we have to navigate. And it's pretty clear that you all have figured out how to navigate that based on the roles that you all play on campus. So thank you for sharing that. Kat, I'd love to hear from you. What did your family talk to you about related to education?
Yeah, so growing up, education wasn't really like such a huge thing put on me. I know like here and there, my parents would be like, oh, you have to do good in school so that you could like graduate and get a good job. Like that was just it. That was the only thing they'll tell me. And then my grandma should always say, she's like, oh, I can't wait till you graduate from your high school and I get to go see you. So that was like kind of my motivation. But I think it was like until college where I was like, I mean, until high school, I was like, maybe I should go to college. I don't know. And I asked my parents, what do you think? Should I go to college? They're like, honestly, yeah, you should. Like, do you want to be stuck in a job like us? I was like, no. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But my dad, he always told me, he's like, look, I've been a waiter since like I was 13. I came to the States so young, and I wish I would have went to school. So there's a lot of that. Like, he kept telling me, I wish I would have went to school. Even my mom, I wish I would have went to school. So I think you should do it. And then just being in college, I would like often ask them for advice, and they would tell me like, oh yeah, just keep staying in school and you're gonna have a great job. You're gonna do this and this and that. So I think as I started to get into the whole college idea, they did too. And that's when they started pushing it more on me. But they do like support it, and they want me to have a college education, because they even tell me like, you don't want to end up in a job that you're not happy with. And they tell me all the time, if you're in college, you get to pick what you want to do. And after that, like life will be a lot more easier if you just have options. And being a first gen in at UCSD, it's a lot of figuring it out. Like, that's all I gotta say. It's a lot of just like, all right, trial and error. Let's see what works. Let's see what doesn't. Everything's so new that it did feel like, am I doing this right? I think that's what I often ask myself. So it's a lot of that, but pretty much just figuring it out, trying to find the right things for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Kat. And then Noemi, if you don't mind, what are some of the messages that you heard about school or the importance of education?
The first thing that that came to mind is when I was little and being placed, most of my peers were placed in ESL classes, and I was one of the only ones that didn't get placed in an ESL class. And when I asked my mom about it, she'd always be like, oh, it's because like you grew up with both of them at the same time, like both languages, English and Spanish. And like I really didn't put much thought into it until like middle school and high school, when my mom kept pushing me to like stop, like not stop speaking Spanish. And she was like, if you speak both languages, you're already like worth more. So that's already one of the first things that like I could remember my mom pushing education, not necessarily college. But then once I did get to high school, my parents were like, so what are you going to do after? Like, do you want to keep working or are you going to go to college? And I was like, well, I'm not exactly sure. I still need to figure everything out. And they're like, well, your time's coming up. Like, you need to figure it out. And it was a lot harder because, yeah, like my parents didn't finish high school. My dad didn't finish elementary school. So it was a lot of figuring out, a lot of staying at my teachers' like after school hours. I don't want to say office hours because I didn't know what office hours was in high school, but I can't think of the word for it. Like I'd stay a lot after school. Like that's basically what I remember. And my mom would really rely on like my teachers to be able to like teach me and tell me their experience about going to college and how everything was. But the main thing that I could like push is my mom reminding me that if I speak two languages, that's already worth more than anything. Like that's the first thing education-wise that I remember.
Yeah, it's so wonderful, right, to hear about these stories and reflect on the different ways that family messages then lead to expectations, right? I know for me, being also a first generation college student myself, there was so much about, well, just do good, right? Just be a good student, do as best as you can. And I don't know if they really understood all that went into the major decisions that I had to take on as a young person, right? So one thing that I wanted to ask you all are, either have graduated from UC San Diego or are currently studying some really phenomenal things. And one of the most key major decisions that families ask students about is, well, what are you studying and what do you do? So I just would love to know, like, as you all were starting your college experience, how did you choose? And how is it that you carved the path that you're in now? So in thinking about your major and the choices that you've made, how did you choose as a first generation college student? Kat, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So my oldest sister, she was studying psychology at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and that's literally the only major I knew of. So when I applied for the colleges, I was like, I'll just do psychology. My sister's doing this. I think it'll be easy. And then I started looking more into it as I was doing my applications. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I actually do like psychology. Like I looked at other majors, other lists of majors, and I don't know, learning about the human brain is just really interesting. And now that I've taken my classes in psychology, I love the human brain. I care so much about it. But as in, it's so important to just do things to remain healthy. I don't know. I think about it. I chose psychology because I really like talking to people. I really like learning from others. I like learning about myself. And I feel like just learning like different good ways to keep yourself healthy. Like you could learn how to form new habits, and just if you're feeling certain ways, like there's ways to change it. I don't know. It's just you kind of like kind of learn the instructions of like your own life. I don't know. That's how I like to put it. And yeah, so thanks to my sister, I chose psychology and I ended up really liking it a lot. Also, learning psychology, I've developed a lot of better relationships with others, and I've been able to maintain better relationships with like my family. Me and my sisters finally love each other like we never did this before. I don't know. It's it's really fun to me.
Thank you, Kat. So Marisol, for you, like, how did you end up choosing a major that a lot of people would probably be so excited about, right? STEM, that's what a lot of folks choose. So tell us a little bit about your major choice. Did you start with that? How did you end up where you're at now as far as being a college student with a major of your choice?
Yeah, I think coming into the UCSD, I chose the wrong major. I came in as a structural engineer. Everyone in my high school kind of influenced me, like, oh, do the engineering route. Everyone like that was graduating me with the seniors, they were doing like engineering, civil, computer science, whatnot. And I was like, you know what? I like science. I really like math. You know what? Why not? Like, I'll probably be guaranteed a job once I graduate. But once I came onto campus, my first year got immersed into like the engineering program. I was just like, yeah, it's cool, but it's just not for me. Like, I was almost done with my or like my math requirements for the major, and I was like, I'm gonna miss these math classes. These engineering classes sound cool, but they're not for me. So then I knew it. I was like, why am I wasting time? I went through all the process, going to like academic advisors, going to like the math department, seeing how I can switch as soon as possible. And yeah, I switched. Like at first I was intimidated. I was like, what am I gonna do with a math degree? Like, what are the jobs? What are the options? Like, it was scary at first because of like engineering, what you're gonna, it's pretty, or I guess it's pretty straightforward what you're gonna do. But I was like, for math, there's so many jobs out there that you can do. But I was like, you know what? I really like it. It's my passion. Like, even if I get stuck on like a math problem, like once I figure it out, or once like I go to like office hours and my professors explain it, I just, I'm filled with joy afterwards. Like, I figured out how to solve this hard problem. So yeah, I really like math. It gets me out of my comfort zone, and there's a lot of jobs, and I kind of know what direction I want to go career wise. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Marisol, I think you're the first person I've ever met that said math brings them joy. And that just makes me really happy. So I'm going to change up the question a little bit. Noemi, I'd love to know, in thinking about, the major decisions that you've made, right? And thinking about exploring career paths, how did you, if so, how did you involve your family, whether it's your sisters or your parents, in telling them a little bit about why you're choosing the path that you are on now?
The way that I began involving my family and my parents and sisters in it, since I am double majoring in political science and ethnic studies, I do see my political science side coming out a lot when having conversations with my family, because they're always trying to talk to me about politics, and sometimes they don't understand it right. So here I am trying to explain things for them. And it's one of the things that I actually discovered that I really like doing. Like, I think when COVID first hit and everyone was trying to apply for unemployment, and all my coworkers at the time were trying to apply for unemployment, this was like free game for me. Like, I love trying to explain politics and everything around the government and showing stuff to people. Like, even though, yes, the government's super complicated, I don't know why, just explaining it and making it more manageable and doable is definitely one of the ways that I love incorporating my major into family dynamic stuff. But I definitely did not come in thinking I was going to do government and politics. I definitely came in with another mind and another goal set to UCSD, but I'm really happy where I am now.
So Noemi, if I could just expand, when you decided to change your major, How did you explain that to your family? And what did they think about it? Especially as folks who are first generation families.
I think something that definitely helped the conversation is coming in as undeclared. Because I applied to UCSD. If you see my extracurriculars in high school also, like you'd think I'd be doing bio or STEM or engineering. Because for 4 years in high school, I ran a STEM club. I literally created STEM club at my high school with my sister because she was a senior when I was a freshman. And for 4 years I had STEM club, and that was like ride or die for me in high school. So I applied to UCSD as a biotechnical engineer. And I didn't get that major. I got in as undeclared. And when I was telling my professors and all my teachers, and I was like, hey, like I got in, like, what does that mean? They're like, they want you, like they really want you if that means you got in, but as undeclared, because that major was capped. I didn't know what that was at the moment either. So, but I got in, and that definitely helped like bringing the conversation to my parents about what political science is. And I didn't end up declaring my second major, which is ethnic studies, until this last quarter, I think, because I didn't even know about ethnic studies when I came in. I just started taking some classes to fill some GE requirements, and I realized I actually really do like the subject. And then I still can't like fully explain what ethnic studies is to my parents, and I'm still working on that. But the political science part is a lot easier in explaining it, and like they're more open to it now because they understand that like, okay, like it's government stuff. The government's always going to be there. Government has to be there, and people always need help with like government stuff. So it's a lot easier to bring it up to family now.
Thanks for sharing that, Noemi. So Esteban, you are a 3-time, 3-peat school goer as far as post-secondary, with graduating from UC San Diego, moving on to get your master's, and then now embarking on this tremendous journey to join the less than 1% of people in the world who have a PhD. So much love and congrats to you. We're very proud of you as a Triton alum. But I'd love to know, in thinking about that long educational journey, how did you involve your family in these pretty big decisions? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first off, thank you. I appreciate you. For undergraduate, I jumped around probably 5 times with my major. I was not the ideal undergraduate student. I struggled a lot. I was on academic probation. My mom still doesn't know that. But when I started my undergrad, I thought I was going to be on the route towards medical school. Then I switched to psychology. I liked it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I know I didn't want to be a psychologist for the rest of my life, but I really liked the major. And then jumped around with contemplating career fields, post-graduation. Lindsay was a big part in that. And eventually I moved on to my master's. But explaining that transition from working full-time to going back to school to my mom was like, why are you going to give up like a good like paying job to like go back to being a student? And more so in education. She thought I wanted to be like a high school teacher when I told her the master's was in education. And so I had to have that like conversation and break down the what higher education like the field actually consists of, like possible careers I could have with the master's. At the time, I didn't know if I really wanted to do a PhD. So when the time came, I had to tell her, oh, well, I'm going to be a student for another 4+ years, and most likely it's going to be out of state. Uh, so it's also those conversations of like, since my culture is very tight knit family community, explaining that like I'm going to be away, what a PhD means, especially in the United States, and navigating academia, navigating the campus, and again, like what possible careers I could have with the PhD.
Thank you for sharing that story. So this next question, I'd love to hear from all of you about it. And families often talk about how they have so much pride, right? They have so much pride with the fact that their students have chosen to attend a 4-year university, or in Esteban's case, even further. But not only that, that you're attending a UC, right? We hear about rankings. Even if our families may not have previous college going experience, they'll watch the news and they'll say things like, well, we know that UCs are a good school, right? even if they don't know all the specifics. So in thinking about that, what are some of the experiences that you've had here at UC San Diego that you've been able to share with your family and you felt as if they were proud about it? Tell us a little bit about that. So whether it was an involvement opportunity, something that you're currently doing, something that you're currently aspiring to, what are some of the things that you've gotten connected with here at UC San Diego that you have been able to share with your family and they were like, wow, I'm so proud of you. I want to wear that UCSD sticker. Tell me about it. Do you want to start, Esteban?
So I was a student 2011, 2016. So the coaching program was not there when I was a student. So for me, I spend most of my time as an undergrad student with Oasis and the Summer Bridge program. Work different roles with the program, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I was able to not only stay at UCSD but have an impact with different students, different communities, and eventually graduate from UCSD. In addition to my fraternity that I was able to join and embark in different community service projects, that was a big thing for me, giving back to the community. Uh, Again, kind of explaining that concept of Greek life and working to my mom. And even to this day, I still tell her stories of like, oh, remember the student from the summer program? I that's how she knows Summer Bridge. Um, so I constantly tell her and bring it up, but it had a huge impact on my development as an undergrad student.
Noemi, what about you?
For me personally, like it's always been an issue for me getting involved on campus. So like that was one of the hardest things for me even then, because like I commuted to UCSD. I've never lived on campus, and like living in South San Diego with traffic, that was like an hour drive to campus. But if there's like something I can remember where I knew my parents were proud of me and like the pride of being there, was one time I needed a blue book the day before my final, but my professor didn't tell us that we need a blue book the day before my final. And he sent out the email like around 5 p.m. So I was at home, ready to go to bed, ready to like sleep my 8 hours before my final at like 8 a.m. And then I got the email and I looked at my dad and I said, do you want to go on a drive with me really quick? Like I need to pick up a blue book, because I knew the resource centers closed like later on finals week. So I got my dad in my car. Maybe we sped, maybe we didn't, to get on campus, and I got a blue book. And he was like, oh, like this is where you go. Like this is where you go to school. Like me and my family, like, yeah, we've always been in San Diego, but we never go up like past like Spring Valley. So we've never been on campus. My first year on campus was Triton Day, like orientation day. So like just bringing my dad up to UCSD to campus and telling him like, yeah, like this is where I study. And he was like, oh, show me more. And I don't know, I just thought it was so wholesome, because afterwards he posted me on Facebook, and I don't know about like immigrant families, but when my parents post me on Facebook, I know they're happy about me or something, like I did something right if they're posting me on Facebook. So I had a picture, my dad's Facebook has a picture of me next to the fountain in our first college, Ravel. And he was like, oh, here's Mija like at her university. And I don't know, it just warmed my heart up so much when I knew that like my dad was proud of me, because a lot of parents it's a little bit hard for parents to like show that they're proud of their kids, or like they show them in a way that us as kids don't understand. And it's always a weird dynamic, but that memory I hold really close to my heart.
Thank you so much, Noemi. That was definitely a beautiful story. Marisol, what about you?
I think there's been like multiple like small moments like Noemi, like bringing my parents like on campus, like move-in day. But I think one that stood out was since I'm a peer coach for the first gen student coaching program. Um Whenever we take pictures, they get posted on like social media or like on the website. And one day I was I forgot. I think I was doing some. I just showed my parents. I'm like, "Hey, look, I'm on a UCSD website. I think it was National First Gen Day. We were taking this big picture, and me and my co Brandon at that time were holding the banner. And I was like, "Look, if you zoom in, I'm right there." Or like, you didn't have to zoom in, but like, I'm right there. So they were like, "Oh, that's like super cool." They're like all those people, and just it was a great feeling, because they were like, "Wow, like that's really cool. Like you're on like your school's website, and stuff." So I think that was a moment that I can remember right now.
It's really wonderful how savvy your family is with social media, right? Now we know that's how we know how proud they are if we're on their social media and they claim us. Kat, what about you to wrap us up with that question?
Yeah, I feel like I was thinking a lot of different things, as in like I know my parents and my family are really proud of me being at school, but I don't think they really know what I go through. As in like they don't talk to me about like how the classes are really. I don't know. It's just like they're proud I'm here, and right away, my first year after like my parents dropped me off or move in, they bought UCSD gear, and I was like, okay, fun. And I was just so nervous because I'm like, I'm in college, and I was just freaking out. I'm like, what if I don't even make it? And then I went through my whole first year, and they were buying gear like all the time. And I didn't want them to buy gear because I personally was so nervous that I wasn't going to finish college. I'm gonna be honest, like I didn't think I was gonna finish. All right, I'm in my fourth year now. I didn't think I was gonna get this far. Like literally this past Christmas, I finally bought my grandparents UCSD gear because I've made it this far. So I'm pretty sure I'm graduating now. But they have a lot of pride in me. Like they're really happy. But then there's also a lot of pressure because now it's like, I don't know, my parents are always like, oh, you better be doing good in all your classes, or you better be getting good grades. And it's like, don't put that pressure on me. Like I am trying, like I really am trying, but maybe, I don't know. It's a really like hard topic for me, the pride, because I take it as a pressure, but it's also like a good pressure. But it's also like they don't really ask me how I'm actually doing in the classes or how I'm truly feeling being in college. They're just like, oh, she goes to UCSD. She's so smart. She's so this. Like she could do anything. Oh, she has a job as this and this and that. And yeah, I've accomplished a lot, but it's also like, I went through so much. Like, why don't you talk to me about, or why? And then when I share with them, it's all like, I kind of can't share how I feel because then they come at me with, oh, but it's just school. Like school is easy. And I know they're trying to make me feel like positive about it, but it also like kind of pushes me away as in like, okay, I don't want to hear that. I wanted to hear like a little more empathy. But I don't know. I mean, I really do like that my mom posts all the time, every time I went to, when she would go to campus. Oh, one thing, they're so proud of me being at school, but every time I had to move in and out of like my first year, second year, third year, and then fourth year, they didn't like that part. They were like, oh, you're moving out again, or you're moving in again. And it's like, yeah. Oh, and then when I would come home, I know I'm going on a full rant, but when I would come home, they wouldn't want me to go back to UCSD. And it's like, well, I'm a student, you know, I have to go do my stuff. They're like, no, 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 you could stay longer. Like, why do you want to leave already? But I know it all comes from the heart. I think I'm thinking about it too much, but I know it comes from the heart, but it's also like, it's a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for your transparency and honesty, Kat. Like going to college, especially as a first-gen college student, is so complex, right? You talked a little about like, am I really going to make it, right? Like, am I really going to have this happen? And sometimes this, like you mentioned, this pressure is so hard to share with our families, right? Particularly when we know that we also want to succeed and we want them to be proud, but going to college is not easy, right? If it was, more and more people would do it. So I appreciate and validate you acknowledging that fact. So Kat, that's actually a really perfect segue. Something that research has looked a lot into is that first generation college students experience something called familial academic achievement guilt, which is essentially where students sometimes feel, you know, like this push or pull factor where it's like you feel really excited about being in college, but also sometimes you feel guilty about like missing out on key things like, you know, family parties or caregiving responsibilities. And I'm just wondering if that resonates with you. So for four of you, if whoever wants to share, how is it that you navigate those feelings of pressure, guilt, and expectations while also trying to stay focused on your future path? So whoever would like to start.
Okay, sorry. I missed out on a lot of events that were happening at home. And I'm from Los Angeles, so San Diego wasn't too far. So when I was able to come home, I would. And again, like my first 2 years, I didn't have a car. So my parents had to either do the drive or I had to go by bus. but I always found a way. But sometimes I was like, I have a midterm on Monday. I can't go for the weekend. I know at first, my first year, they didn't really understand so much just because I would get a lot of like, wow, you're really not coming for dad's birthday, or wow, you're really not coming for this. And that hurts. I don't know. And then when I would see it on like social media, oh, my whole family's together, it wasn't easy on me. It really wasn't. I know that's part of the reason I didn't think I was gonna stay at UCSD, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm missing out on everything my family's doing. Like, is it even worth it? I was home my whole life and now I'm not. I know circumstances are different now with the pandemic, but that's what I did feel. And then, yeah, so it took me a long time to finally realize like it's okay to miss out on certain events. There will be more. And yeah, I don't know. I know my family got a little more used to it, where they were like, okay, if you can't make it, like that's totally fine. Like we get it, you have your academics. But it took them some time to adjust, as well as myself to adjust to that. Um, yeah, that's my take on that.
Thank you, Kat. Would anyone else like to share?
Sure. For me, I think I could agree with Kat. Like the guilt that you get from your parents or just siblings. Like I would get like a text from my siblings like, "Hey, are you coming up for this weekend? Hey, like, oh, you should come. We should go out." Like before the pandemic. So like my first and second, or mainly my first year, I always had to like sacrifice. Like, do I want to be on campus, exploring, having fun, exploring San Diego, going to downtown, going to the beach, doing this, or like studying, or do I go back home, be with my parents? Because I'm not gonna say like no, I didn't want to go home. Like there was times where I was like, oh, I really miss like my little sister, or I miss my parents, I miss my mom, I miss her cooking. Like I want to go home. So I guess just learning how to like set boundaries, or learning like how to navigate that. Like okay, like I won't come home this weekend, but I will come home because next weekend is my dad's birthday. So for sure, like whenever I'm in San Diego or was in San Diego for school, I was like, my dad's birthday's coming up, or my brother's, I'm gonna be there. So that was something I never sacrificed. I'm like, like I'm gonna go celebrate their birthday. Another thing I want to highlight is that I think this pandemic has increased the sense of guilt. Like you're here in Zoom, in class, lecture, but like you're used to doing chores, or at least I'm used to doing chores, like helping out with my mom, cleaning my room, or like cleaning outside, helping her cook or something like that. But like there's sometimes where like either work, lectures, office hours, it just your whole day gets taken up and you just can't find time to help. So I guess just being able to like communicate that with your parents, setting boundaries, like going like, hey, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I'm slammed with like class, lecture. I mean, yeah, class, office hours, and whatnot. And yeah, even then, like sometimes my parents are like, oh, you're studying math. Shouldn't it be easy? Like, I was like, no. So then I would just show them my textbooks. I'm like, this isn't easy. I don't get it. Do you get it? But yeah, that's what I have to share.
Thank you, Marisol. Noemi or Esteban, any feedback before we jump into some questions?
I think for me as an undergrad, it was a little different because I'm from San Diego. So the years I did live near campus, the commute wasn't that bad. Um, so I would be able to spend time with my mom. It was just I didn't have the like knowledge of how to like tell her, hey, like I have to study for this test, or I have to study for this class, because the assumption was from like high school is like, oh, you just go to class, go to school, and you're free after school, right? To do whatever XYZ. But for college is very different. That their expectation is that you need to study after class to do well. Even to this day I still have that go, especially like Marisol said with the pandemic, that uh thankfully all of my work is on my laptop. I can go different Zoom meetings, class, meetings, etc. But I see my brother, I see my mom going to work, and when it's raining and with the pandemic and the different spikes, and I'm at home. So that was a different type of like guilt that it was, that I had to like wrap it with. And since I'm at home and I spend a lot of time on the computer, my mom is like, well, what are you doing? What do you really do? Are you watching Netflix? Are you on Facebook? And I'm like, no, those are like my breaks because sometimes I just need to rest my mind. And she's like, well, like at least you have it easy. So it's kind of like those conversations that having explaining that like, yeah, I do work online, but I need my time too.
Yeah, so I'm at a director level now, and one time I called my grandmother and she was like, "How are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm tired. It's been a long day." And she said, "Why are you tired? You've been sitting at home all day." Right? So even helping them understand that work from home or school from home is sometimes even more challenging. Noemi, any final words before we transition to Q&A?
Yeah, super quick. I just want to say, like, because I've lived at home and I've always commuted, that was always a difficult balance. And then when I started getting more comfortable telling my parents, like, hey, I really can't come home yet, especially when it became late at night, midterm final season, it would be like 10:30 p.m. and I was at the library. My mom would call me and she'd be like, "¿Dónde estás? Like, where are you? Like, come home now, come home now." And I was like, "I really can't. Like, please, I got into a grind. I got into a grind. Like, I got into like my finally workflow. I'm finally understanding it." And then my parents would be like, "Come home now, please, come home now." And that was always a difficult thing to balance because for the longest time I could not work at home. Like, it just couldn't. It was not my place. And like plus also like working like part-time when I was still going to school. I could not work at home because I would always have to go to like a Starbucks and then go to my shift afterwards, or like work a morning shift and then go to Starbucks and like work there. Like, that was always my workplace. But at least now, like, I've been able to communicate a little bit better. It's still a little bit rough because my parents sometimes, like, they'll see me and like, so maybe, yeah, I'll have a YouTube tab open afterwards for like a little break because like that's how I study, with someone else studying with me on YouTube. And it's like a 5-minute break. And then my mom would walk in on me and she'd be like, "Oh, caught you, like, you're not doing anything." And I was like, "No, it's my 5-minute break. Like, hold up." So that's always been hard, especially like since I've always been home, but it's just different ways of navigating it. That's always helpful.
Well, thank you so much, Noemi, Marisol, Kat, and Esteban, for providing us some insight and a little bit about your personal journeys. I'd like to invite our attendees. So if you are joining us in this call, I just want to remind you that the Q&A portion is accessible to you. Please type your questions so that you can get the awesome insights of our panelists. So please feel free to use that function so that we can get your questions answered. So I'm actually going to go ahead and pose a question that came from the audience. And this is actually a question for you, Marisol. So this family member says that their son is a math major as well. And they'd like to know, what career paths are you considering with your very joyful math degree?
Okay, yeah, this is a good question. I get asked a lot because math is so general. But for me, I think I really want to either teach mathematics or go into like the industry, specifically like data analytics, statistics, sports analytics. That says like I want to do something fun with math, like something applicable, fun. So those are my career options. But also the education route I would like to teach at a community college. Like, I feel like high school would be cool, like teaching at a high school, but I feel like all this math, all this calculus that I've learned, there's a certain point in high school where you hit a limit of how much math you can teach, or what higher level math you can teach. And I feel like at a community college, the classrooms are still small. There's still a younger, fresher audience. It's just different things you can do compared to a university where it's one, you have to go get a whole PhD, which is like 5 years. And then from there, you have to be a researcher slash teaching and balancing that. I think I think I think I'll wait, I'm twisting myself. Well, my career options right now that have is option one, I applied to grad school, so I'm waiting on that. I applied to a couple masters, so I'm waiting to hear back from them. Like I said, I really want to do stuff in stats or applied mathematics. So most of the grad schools that I've been looking at or applying are masters in stats. And then internship slash entry level jobs that I've been applying to have been like data analyst for like Netflix, a cloud support associate for Amazon, right now, because of the whole pandemic, like the sports industry isn't really hiring, or if they are, they're hiring for more like junior, senior levels. So those aren't opening up yet for me. But yeah, that's where I want to go. But with the math major, you can go in like different directions. It's just what skills you have, what you want to do, what your interest, what your passion. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, Marisol. So I'd like to expand that question a little bit for the rest of our panelists. How is it that you are receiving or have received that kind of like, beacon of light to know, for example, Marisol, that there's all of these job options? So how does a first-gen student at UC San Diego even know how to take their major and transform it into potential career or graduate school paths? Esteban, I'm going to have you go first, since you took a route, right? That's a little bit different than what you originally intended. So how do first-gen UCSD students carve a career pathway based on their major?
So for my major psychology and minor in sociology, to this day, my mom still thinks I'm a licensed psychologist and I talk to people and whatnot. But post graduation, I knew that I didn't want to do anything with school anymore. But look at me now. And I just wanted to do something that would like have an impact in my communities. And at that moment, I didn't know exactly what that looked like. And for a moment, I thought like, oh, police work would be it. And I had like a moment, and I talked with Lindsay at that time, uh, that I didn't really want to go that route. So I thought, oh, like maybe higher ed will be my route. So that's when I went to go do my master's, and I just fell in love with the field. I just fell in love with the field. It has its little problems here and there, not gonna lie. But at that moment, I knew that I wanted to be a practitioner, and what a practitioner is, like working like full time, um, counseling services, advising, or residential, like the different components within a college. uh it was my second year that I'm like, you know what, I really like research, and I see myself doing research. So right now my goal after completing this PhD is being a tenure track faculty member, doing research, teaching, um, doing service, giving back to my communities. Even as a student, I still volunteer with nonprofits, just trying to pay it forward and bringing other people behind me too.
Thank you, Esteban. So Kat and Noemi, what are you all thinking for career paths, and how are you learning about what those potential career or graduate school paths might be?
I could go first real quick. Well, at least right now, like the way that's been super helpful for me is like I'm currently taking one of my political science courses, and I'm super grateful that my professor is also a law school professor at California Western School of Law. I do not know where that is. I know it's in San Diego, somewhere by Santa Fe Depot. That's what he told me. And just going to his office hours and like picking at his brain and talking to him about law school is always super interesting, because it made me realize, okay, I don't think I want to go to law school, but I still want to do something government related and like helping people figure out the government. Because like as I said earlier, like that one moment when like Corona first hit and I was helping all my coworkers at the time apply for unemployment, understand what federally withheld wages were and like how everything worked and what impeachment was and like what a Senate trial is and just figuring out all this like government stuff and like all this vocab. I thought that was super interesting. So it's made me realize that maybe I do want to do higher education. That way I could pursue something in like teaching government or counseling government stuff. I'm still not 100% sure, but I'm still figuring out. I'm still going to office hours and I'm still talking to like, I recently did a program called Try and Connect where hopefully getting paired up with an alum and they will take me to their job or like walk me through like what they do day to day. That way I could find out more stuff. And it's been really hard because sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough by not knowing what I want to do. But it's always a lot of affirmation too from like my peers and stuff telling me like, it's okay if you don't know what you want to do. Like that's why you're here at school. Like that's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly what Noemi said. It's okay to not know what you want to do. I'm in my 4th year. I think I finally kind of narrow it down, but I know I could change my mind, and that's okay. I'm pretty sure my family thinks I'm going to be a therapist. I'm not. I don't want to be. I did in my 1st year. I was like, I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to work at schools because I really want to have like students and I want to be close with students. Then luckily I had my job as a peer coach, and now I have students and I love talking to students. There's something about kind of being their support system and just like, keep on having them grow in the system, in education. So with that, like with psychology and with the classes I've taken, I was like, no, I'm gonna work at a hospital. Like I really want to work maybe like with people with eating disorders, or just like any kind of disorder, because well, yeah, I have like so many reasons why, but then I brought it back to what I really truly want to do is maybe become a teacher. I've been thinking about it a lot, like in the past couple of weeks or days, weeks, yeah, weeks. And even Rachel, my mentor, I tell her all the time, like, I don't know what I want to do, and it's okay, like I'm gonna take my break after this. And but the more I like kept thinking about the break I'm gonna take, I'm also thinking, no, I want to work as like, I just want to like learn what I want to do. So I'm gonna try to volunteer in a lot of different things and find out, but I also like apply to certain teaching positions. So hopefully I get something with that, and at least like I'll find out if I actually like teaching. But I still will want to come back to and get my master's in something more with psychology because I do really like it. So I'm still figuring it out, but I'm kind of like narrowing it down to like, okay, I'm really into education, but I still really love health and like clinical work. So I'm keeping my options open, but I'm also like, I'm gonna try out different things and until I like actually find out what I really want. Right now, I'm thinking I know my future, but it will change. I feel like in the past 4 years it kept changing. So yeah, I'll keep everyone updated.
Thank you, Kat. Yeah, life is a journey, right? So I love your open-minded and growth mindset approach to figuring out what that process is going to be. So I would like to ask these questions. So we have two final questions before we close out. So I'm going to ask Kat and Marisol to answer this question, and then the other question we're going to have Esteban and Noemi close out with. So Kat and Marisol, the question from a family member is, what was your biggest surprise, good or bad, that you were not expecting when you got to UC San Diego? Marisol, would you like to go first?
Yes. I was trying to think of something, but I think the thing that comes to the top of my mind is classes aren't, or like going to lecture isn't mandatory, or for the majority, it isn't mandatory. Like the professors aren't going to be like babysitting you, like, hey, you have an assignment due. Maybe they'll send like a random, well, depending on your professor, you have like a random reminder, like, hey, don't forget, we have an upcoming exam, or we have an assignment due this following Friday. But they'll maybe announce it like once or twice. You're like if you didn't submit something, your teacher will come up to you and go like, hey, what happened to X homework assignment? No, they're like, okay, 0, move on. So I think that was a shocker. I was like, what am I supposed to do? I'm taking like 4 classes, each have different assignments and like deadlines. Who's gonna remind me? Adult, I'm a college student. Let me start like figuring out like an agenda or like a way to like manage everything. But yeah, that was my surprise.
That could be a shocker, right, Marisol? It's a huge adjustment, especially for our first-year students. So Kat, for you, quickly, what is a big or what is a surprise, good or bad, that you experienced?
Okay, personally, I wasn't so surprised, but I still was surprised that I was probably one of the very few Latinas in my classes. That one hit me hard because I grew up in a environment that was predominantly Black and Latino or Latinx, and I went to now at UCSD. It's diverse, but there's not as much as like not enough color. I don't know. And it's not a bad thing, it's not terrible, but that's when I realized, okay, I'm gonna learn a lot more about different cultures, and it's a good thing. But at first I was like, wait, there's not a lot of us here. Like, and then when I would find another like Latinx student, I would go sit by them because I don't know, something about it just felt like, okay, we're gonna stick to this together. Yeah, that's one thing that really shocked me. But also the grades. Yeah, professors will not tell you over and over again to do a certain assignment. You have to literally keep yourself up to date with everything. It's hard.
Yeah, Kat, thanks for sharing that. And I think it's important to note that when you started as a first-year student to where UCSD is now, I know for sure that the Latinx student population has significantly increased, with UC San Diego about to be an emerging Hispanic serving institution. So I do give our institution kudos for making more diverse recruitment strategies. So to close us out with the final question, Esteban and Noemi, a family member is asking, with this unique times of social distancing, are there any organizations or clubs that any of you are involved in that does a lot of outreach, be it on Zoom or meetings in small groups? I feel that my student doesn't leave her room much, or she is busy with only her studies. I worry about burnout. Maybe Esteban, you could handle the larger burnout stuff, since I know it's been a bit since you've been at UCSD related to small groups and student orgs. So Noemi, do you want to take that first question? Tell us a little bit about what you know so that we can make sure this student doesn't burn out.
Definitely. I'm gonna a little bit self-promo the coaching program that me, Marisol, and Kat work for, and that Lindsay's a director for, because definitely we love doing outreach. And one of my favorite things about this, like this org, like since I've been part of my first year, is like getting to meet with my peer coach and getting to meet with my success coach and meeting my students now that I work for it. I think that was always super fun. It always like was a way for me to get involved when I was super shy to get involved at first. And even now, I get super excited when I get a notification on my desktop saying a student has scheduled a meeting with you. Like I'd be on FaceTime with my friends and I'm like, I got a student scheduled meeting, and it was super fun. Like I really like that. And another way to start getting involved that isn't like super, I don't want to say like, what is it, head on, like super like really quick, like diving off the deep end, I mean, kind of thing, is like, I always recommend this to my students as well, is to look up the UCSD community resource centers. Although yes, like they're all closed, if you sign up for their weekly newsletters, they send an email like once a week just saying like different resources on campus, things that they're offering, and they even enjoy, like they have like little events that are specifically tailored to that specific community. Like for example, like same as Kat, I'm Latinx and I subscribe to the Raza Resource Central newsletter, and weekly they have an event called Mingle Mondays, for example. I haven't gone personally, but when I go through the newsletters with my students, they're like, oh, like that event sounds like so much fun. I'm definitely gonna show up. And I really definitely need to like check up on them if they're actually showing up to them, but they're super fun. Our program also has events. We had an event this week. It was a really good turnout, really fun. But like, even though yes, they are like socially distant and virtual, like it's still a fun way to like disconnect from school stuff and just get to meet new people, even if it's virtually.
Thank you, Noemi. And then Esteban, what are your brief 10 seconds of advice for helping students mitigate burnout during a time like now?
I just want to acknowledge burnout is real. So I would just suggest time management. For example, like if you're a student, like the times they're in classes, the time they're studying, but also allocating time to go outside, walk. For example, like I've heard like pre-commute, like so the time that it would take you to get to class or school, and then after the time it would take you to get back home, walk around the block or something, uh to kind of help the brain process like, okay, it's not just being on the screen all day every day, because that will get very tiring. um and also acknowledging that when they're studying, so if it's midterm season, they're going to be on the computer a lot more than just like other weeks. So also taking that into consideration.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Esteban, Kat, Marisol, and Noemi, for your phenomenal insights and advice. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dan, who has some announcements to share for upcoming webinars to close out our partnership. If you'd like to learn more about the work that we do at Student Retention and Success, please visit us at srs.ucsd.edu. Dan, thank you again for this opportunity. Take it away.
Thank you, Lindsay. Again, you can check out all of these programs and resources that Student Retention and Success provides at the website srs.ucsc.edu. And you can also email any questions or reach out at firstgenerations@ucsc.edu. As for my department, who was co-sponsoring this event, is Office of Parent and Family Programs. Our website is parents.ucsc.edu. You can email us at parents@ucsc.edu with any questions, concerns, or if you're looking for any information to help support your student. You can also get involved with our office through our Parent Family Ambassador program. We love having all of our parents and family members join that program to get involved and sometimes appear on sessions like this when we do include our family members on panels. And also on the lookout for our First Generation Trying Family Connection newsletter. The most recent newsletter just went out at the beginning of February, and you can actually access that on our website if you do not receive it by email. I also want to share that this recording will be posted on our YouTube channel and website tomorrow if you would like to watch it back and have subtitles translated into your preferred language. You can do that by following the steps on the screen, selecting settings, going to subtitles, and selecting auto translate in your preferred language. And again, thank you so much for attending our second First Generation Family Tables Talk as a part of this the brand new Trying Family web series. We will be coming back with another First Gen Family Table Talk next quarter entitled A Tale of Two Worlds, Navigating the Home Community and the University Community. The date is to be determined. It will be announced in the coming weeks, and registration for that event will open up the same way it did for this event later in the winter quarter. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to our panelists and our moderator and our support staff. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and go Trends.